Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, yes. On behalf of Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center, I'd like to welcome you all to Queer and Trans Poetics in partnership with Lambda Literary featuring Hernandez, Chekwube Danladi, and Charles Jensen. Please give it up for them. My name is Jimmy Vega, and I'm the Assistant Director of Beyond Baroque. I'd like to start off by acknowledging Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Tonga peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent disposition of their land. As an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting Indigenous communities, their stories, and cultures. For those who don't know, Beyond Baroque is Los Angeles' oldest literary institution located here in Venice, California. Founded in 1968, first as an experimental literary magazine before reimagining itself and becoming the center it is today. We are based out of the original Venice City Hall and help support writers and help cultivate new writing through our extensive program of writing workshops, readings, and performances. We're currently offering a number of workshops online via Zoom, such as our Monday night fiction workshop, facilitated by Raquel Baker, and our historic Wednesday night poetry workshop, currently facilitated by James Fujinami Moore. We also have a number of paid in-person workshops, such as Learning the Rules to Break the Rules in Poetry with Xochi Julissa Bermejo, and Unfolding Through Signature Time with Allison Adele Hedge-Koch. Aside from our workshops, we offer several readings throughout the year. As you all know, this weekend is the Southern California Poetry Festival. We're going to keep the festival going throughout the night, and we'll have more tomorrow. Tonight, we're going to close off with a very special reading for our new series that's going to feature Juan Felipe Herrera, Marcelo Castillo Hernandez, and Sofia Egilio. So please do stick around for that. That's going to include all new work that's been commissioned by Beyond Baroque. So that's going to be really exciting. And apart from our programs, we do offer memberships to support the center. Memberships to Beyond Baroque help us to support free programming, support the festival, etc. We do pay our authors as well. Right now, we are currently in our end of the year campaign fundraiser. So if you do want to become a member, please meet with Michelle Raphael, who is right over there. She'd love to talk to you about memberships and or donations. This week, we are celebrating Trans Awareness Week, so we want to give a lot of love for our trans folks. We want to make sure that we continue to support and protect trans children, trans authors, trans poets, not just this week, but always, right? And to help celebrate that, we have three fantastic authors today that are going to be with us sharing some work. First up, we have Faye Hernandez, a trans, formerly undocumented immigrant. Faye is a writer, cultural worker, director, filmmaker, designer, illustrator, and a life doula, creative and spiritual coach devoted to the empowerment and preservation of trans and queer Black Indigenous futures. She's a 2023 Lambda Literary Fellow and 2022 Tin House Scholar. Faye is the author of Hood Criatura and the forthcoming Undocumente. Please make some noise for Faye Hernandez.
Do I have to get, oh, y'all can hear me. Okay, perfect. I thought I had to. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm looking for the poems I'm going to read. I feel really blessed to have a stage to be able to share some new and old work alike. These are dedicated to my lovely mommy who's sitting in the front row, and I hope y'all enjoy them. This one's titled To Love You at the End of the World. It's a contrapuntal in 2 sonnets. I'm just being nerdy because, you know, I want to be bougie and like... Okay, to love you at the end of the world. Bro, the name given to a reprieve resistant to smooching. The bridge of tobacco leaves twisted in pyre, yet doing it anyways. The rotation air pull between us, Sibylline, a va va va, an ofrenda, or kumbaya, or afraid, of course. until it's our will to uncage our sloppy shadows emerged. The inconsolable dissension between us thereafter, homie. Like all the other brothers who post-date me, I'm brave to love you, my myopic magnet, my broski, my broham, my hell-bent rose, half my body below rich seaside highway on the corner of diasporic byway and Ratchet Avenue, excerpt, except that's not exactly how Tupac and Frank spit it. Heap, haste, harden, keep inferno in the apartment of our fingers before a doubt storm slashes what started us tonight. If I'm not the kind of girl who will rub halos on your back, I'm dumb, anxious crop circle, an indecipherable foreign language, a cumulus cloud suffering my lips at the end of the world for a short while till it doesn't make it back to me, bro. My hell-bent rose, the name given to a reprieve resistant to half my body smooching below rich, the bridge of tobacco leaves, seaside highway, twisted in pyre yet doing it anyway, on the corner of diasporic byway, the rotation air pull between us and Wretched Avenue, Sibylline, a va-va-va excerpt, except that's not exactly an ofrenda or kumbaya or how Tupac and Frank spit it, afraid of course, heap, haste, harden until it's our will, keep inferno in the apartment of our hands to uncage our sloppy shadows, fingers, before a doubt storm slashes emerged what started us tonight. The inconsolable dissension of I'm not the kind of girl who will rub halos between us thereafter on your back, homie. I'm dumb, anxious crop circle, like all the other brothers, an indecipherable foreign language who post-date me, a cumulus cloud suffering my lips. I'm brave to love you at the end of the world, my myopic magnet for a short while, my broski, my broham, till it doesn't make it back to me. Thank you. Before being flung on the telephone wire, before being flung on the power line, God don't give a fuck about me. She doesn't care my red 270 symbolized my uterus. She still hurls them onto the telephone line. When people ask me where I'm from, I say a power line shooting through a sky belly. My womb is a plastic bag stuck on the telephone line. The breeze don't change directions where I'm from, so I stay stuck. God can be my homegirl, all swaggy and hoops and a crop top, be divine mother, Cuatlicue and a snake skirt, crescent fangs all out to impress me, but still, she don't give a fuck about the womb. She don't give a fuck that my womb is a knot where desire meets murder and it's her fault. She doesn't care I'll cling between soil and infinite blue without a ladder tall enough to reach me. My worth amounts to the wailing dead end of trans, motherhood, and disappointment, and still exist. Yet, I am reduced to a symbol that marks the dead, a lynching purpose that doesn't ovulate, just sways. I am a crucifixion, God's divine elaborate joke for bodies like mine, always at war with themselves. Yet maybe I wouldn't have looked up if there was nothing to mourn. Maybe I wouldn't have chosen life otherwise, chosen breath otherwise. Maybe she wants people to see me with punctured windows in my hand so they can see their divinity too. See the telephone line between sky and dirt they live on too. Maybe we're all suffering mid-flight somewhere, heading to our destination, or maybe dolls, horse, Barbies, girls deserve to look up without grief. Thank you. Damn, these are so sad. Fuck.
It's Scorpio season.
Oh my goodness, I feel it in my bones. This one's cute. It's titled Origin Story. I swirl around my soon-to-be Mexican parents. There is a love about them, makes me want to live. They are on a date to see Vicente Hernandez in a rodeo. Papi hands mommy both flimsy tickets. She smiles her wildest smile, points at the white horses galloping, dancing, while Chente belts. Her curls are wild with excitement. She even wore her reddest lipstick for the occasion of being loved as much as she was. Papi braces his love by the neck. of a sweaty corona, nervous and hungry all at once, impresses her with all he knows about the rodeo. Later that month, when mommy reveals that something like pure life or pure love or light is brewing inside her, my father burps darkness, waves away the fog, and confesses he's married. There is a love about them, makes me want to live even if the threshold crumbles, burns me on the way out. I choose them. This is how I come to life. From a love between a woman desperate to have a purpose and a cowboy drunk in love. How even before existence, I insist on resistance, and how upon living, I insist on what doesn't want me, as if I have a choice, do I? Thank you. Loud. Mami's carcajada, loud, and sneeze, loud, and weep, loud, and hijo de tu madre, loud, her curses flinging out, loud, her stomps from her room to the kitchen, dumb loud, her counting her dollar bills after a long day of work, loud, working in factories, loud, working and working, loud, her tongue smack, loud, her clacking at the keyboards, loud, her no me llores, me vas a hacer llorar, loud. In other words, stop your suffering because it'll make mine worse, loud, dials buttons on the phone, loud, her whispering gossip, loud, her suffering, loud, her I don't take shit from no one, loud, especially men, loud, her excitement, loud, her hips on the dance floor, loud, her smile, loud, her loud. Talks to family in Mexico on the phone, loud. We undocumented folks don't know when we're laughing or crying or cursing at God, but when we do know is that it's gotta be loud. It's a thing of the people we were before the unearthed migration, before colonization, before things of silence. Mommy says, okay, loud. Her jokes slap, her coraje loud, her snores loud, her love loud. I ask Mommy, why do you always cry so much? She says, because I don't know what to do, loud. We don't have money to pay our 4x4, which means I haven't been able to send money to Mexico for your father to clothe his newborn child, loud. Which means I have rivers in me that need to be let out, loud. Which means we've been migrating for centuries and I'm tired, loud. Which means when does it end, loud? When does it end, loud? Which means what can I hold on to when everybody leaves? Which means y'all gonna hear me loud. Thank you. The Lovers. There is a story only Mami can tell me now, because Papi has disappeared into the frontera somewhere. She says the day I made my first appearance on Earth, they were on the grassy fields of Lago El Rincón, had just sucked on the bones of fried fish from El Siroco, while Vicente Hernandez strung the anatomy of a cassette. Chentes satis belting filled their desperate, emptying love together. There's no more red lipstick or wild hair. There is still a corona gripped by the neck, though. There's a love about them, complicated and at war, that keeps them tangled. Her mountain lion eyes, that now see through darkness, still love him, she says. According to Mami, Naika, the land undressed her hills and lake, revealed herself in nightfall that Mami calls the beginning of just us. Light is what Mami calls me the first moment she felt me inside her belly. There is love. There is a love worth losing everything for, mi vida. When you find it, never let it go. Thank you. I'm gonna do one more. So a lot of these poems that I'm reading are from the re-edited version of Hood Criatura that's gonna be republished. So I'm excited about that. So stay tuned. And the cool part is that both books are gonna be standalone pieces. You know, you can still do the comparative analysis. I think it'll be a great exercise. And yeah, my forthcoming book, Undocumented, comes out in 2025, which I'm super hyped for y'all to experience because it's my first time doing like essays and visual poetry to this dynamic extent. This piece, let me find it real quick, is a series of poems with a similar title. They all begin with in the beginning there was, and this is an ode to all of my grandmothers, who are all indigenous women. And it's kind of retracing and retracting like the moment where we have to choose a nationalistic identity for the sake of a survival. In the beginning there was Genova. In the beginning there was God, skin brown like black, sun stored evenly across her body. She spoke Raramuri, the language of good runners, taught her son to read the map in the sky, how to taste the wind and weave it, roll pinol in mouth to feed the hungry organ. Music is in the lines of our palms, she said. This is how we sow, with a hand like soil that festers seeds to burst open and feed the world. With hands like ours, she said, we bring ourselves into the future from nothing, eyes to the soil, and learn to speak. She doesn't tell her son about how his father died in the Revolucion, 5 shots to the body, a red, red death. What she did say, however, was to raise an army of poor children all alone after war is a tired, tired legacy. From now on, we are Mexican, she said with no sweetness. Upon the cosecha, she surrendered her native, her regalia of neon-colored fabrics, first the long skirt, then handed her headscarf to the spirit of Ica, the wind, and learned Spanish. In the monochrome world that is left post-revolution, when neo-colonialism has set its charm, God, I mean my tatara-tatara-abuela, my great-great-grandmother was bulletless enough to preserve my grandfather for me, so I could hear the music. Thank you.
Can we get loud for Faye one more time? Thank you, Faye. Up next, Charles Jensen is the author of 3 poetry collections, most recently Instructions Between Takeoff and Landing. His hybrid book, blending memoir and film analysis, Splice of Life, will be published in May 2024. The City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs designated him a 2019-2020 Cultural Trailblazer, and he is the recipient of the Outright Nonfiction Chapbook Award, Zucolo Poetry Prize, and an Artist Project Grant from the Arizona Commission of the Arts. Please make some noise for Charles Jensen.
Thank you. Many thanks to Lambda and Beyond Baroque for hosting us today. I didn't realize this until I left today, but today is actually the 28th anniversary of when I came out. So it feels really great to be spending this with an audience of queer folks. I'm going to read a poem that I'm going to start with a poem that I think of as an erasure. So I took the Miranda rights and I imagined them on an infinite loop, and then I just erased words. This is called Poem in Which Words Have Been Left Out. You have the right to remain anything you can and will be. An attorney you cannot afford will be provided to you. You have silent will. You can be against law. You cannot afford one. You remain silent. Anything you say will be provided to you. The right can and will be against you. Have anything you say be right. Anything you say can be right. The right remains silent. You will be held. You will be provided. You cannot be you. Thanks. There's a long sequence of poems in here that are written as a reading comprehension exam, which I don't intend to feel like homework, although it might. So what you'll hear is a paragraph, and then there'll be 4 questions to the reader about what you just read. And I'll read a couple of those. This is the first one, called The Water Cycle. Mythologies attribute destruction to an elemental force we can't see coming. Fire, flood, rivers thick with the red salt of blood. But what about the whisper, the one we make, inside the ear of the man we love, when we tell him our time together's done? Breath and words, a lattice work of ruin. Imagine the cloudless sky that makes rain. We don't know why it falls, but then it does. I lay my body down upon a hotel bed and told him though I loved him, I could not be with him. There was a desert outside where it never rains, but when it does, it floods. The desert doesn't know what to do with water, so the water rushes away to someone who does. Quiz on this section. A, identify 3 grand spiritual narratives alluded to by the narrator in this passage. B, is it more or less difficult to be a homosexual? Be honest. C, draw a diagram of the nitrogen cycle. D, who is the villain of this story and every story? Dissection. For a time, I believed people could hear my thoughts. How else did they know my most private desires, the reluctance in my heart when I looked too long at a boy in my class? There was no privacy then. I remember the anatomical model in biology class whose organs, color-coded, could be removed for study. The way the children tore each one out and tossed them back and forth, laughing, disgusted. I wanted their freedom, the way they never needed to learn anything about themselves. Quiz on this section. A, briefly explore the difference between the terms public and private. B, write down the names of 3 people you victimized as a child. C, why has God forsaken his children? Atheists only, why have you forsaken God? D, if freedom isn't free, calculate its unit cost based on the information in the passage. I usually don't skip around in my book, so all my poems are in different places. This is the last quiz poem. Journey to the Center of the Earth. I remember when my ex-boyfriend died, it felt like a tunnel opened up inside me and just kept going, into the floor, down into the earth, into the insides of the earth where we imagine existing all the things we can't bring ourselves to speak. Like the universe, grief is infinite and constantly expanding. I lived in constellations of memories whose designs had no higher meaning then. I cried so much. I cried because my hope was gone. I told people later, grief is the absence of hope, but even then I knew it wasn't true. Grief is when you have hope, and then hope leaves you. Quiz on this section. A, what is the volume of the tunnel described in this passage? Use metric or imperial measures. B, does the reader really care if the narrator cries? Critique this disclosure. C, describe the loss of a child or pet without using the letter I. D, what is death? Sorry I brought all my sad poems today. The next one is a cento. I took lines from different Adrienne Rich poems in response to a prompt from terrain.org to write a poem in response to the last president before Biden. And I'm troubled to find that it still remains significant even today. So this is called Dear America. You're beginning to float free toward a new kind of love, burning itself, burning down the blueprint of a life. I wanted to choose words that even you intend to refuse shelter with a lie, and each a beautiful tumor feeding on everything. The words are maps, in a room where too much has happened for you to bear. Not a map of choices, but a map of variations. Our country moving closer to its own truth and dread. I know already who wants to buy it, sell it, make it disappear. You're what the autumn knew would happen on a gray day of early spring, faint flakes driven. I came to see the damage that was done. I want you to see this before I leave, and you must look back. A conversation begins in the empty street, on the empty beach, in the desert. Isn't revolution but a way of knowing language cannot do everything. Okay. All right, this one's kind of funny. I'm gonna lighten the mood a little bit. So I had a coworker, and she was very intelligent, and she loved to drop little factoids, and I just love learning like little tidbits about things. So she dropped this, which became the title. This poem took forever to get right, and I was so excited when I finally did. It's called "Only 13 Blimps Remain on Earth." Blimps are the manatees of the sky, slow, fat, docile. A group of blimps is called a fantasy. A wild blimp can travel 200 miles a day with help from kind winds. Only 13 blimps remain on Earth. Surviving blimps live alone in captivity. Blimps seem unafraid of human contact. Blimps appear in the sky any time of year. A blimp's largest organ is its one sac lung. A fantasy of blimps will never again gather in our sky. The moon is thought to be jealous of their spectacle. Blimps are not permitted to mate with other blimps. They live a monastic life. Humans and time are the blimp's only predators. When a blimp dies, remaining blimps sense this loss, and they, for a short time, refuse the sky. We cannot be sure if blimps believe in heaven. This is my last poem. This poem was inspired by, I had like a situationship with this guy when I was in college, and it was very like, will they or won't they? We never did. But there was a moment where I was like, he invited me on this picnic, and I was like, oh, it's finally gonna happen. Like, we're gonna make out, we're gonna like be boyfriends. And I remember being at the picnic, and I can't even remember what he said while we were talking, but also like this setting for this conversation, very wrong. He said something, and like my heart broke, and I was like, oh my God, this is never gonna happen for sure. So don't take someone on a picnic and drop the knowledge that you never wanna date them. That is the wrong approach. So this is called Spring Prayer. Picnic, grass, cattails stirring muck in spring's breeze, blanket, scattered items, crumbs, the magic light of afternoon sun, honey on his skin. We will never be lovers now. This day confirms it. Loons on the nearby lake paddle, coo, that haunting call, like what the heart would say, should we ever give it words. I have known his skin's scent, texture, stubble as woolen as the blanket as we share. Mouth with a unique, unforgettable taste. But kisses, skin aren't the conversation today. Spring around us, lying about rebirth, the animals secretly mating, parting. They feel no longing, do they? God, make me an animal now. Give me this emptiness. Thank you.
Keep giving it up for Charles Jensen, folks. All right, our next reader is Chekwube Danladi, the author of Semiotics, winner of the Cave Canem Poetry Prize and Take Me Back, included in the New Generation African Poets chapbook box set. She has received support from Cambilio Fiction, the Lambda Literary Foundation, Hedgebrook, the Vermont Studio Center, the Wisconsin Institute for Creative Writing, and elsewhere. She is the 2022 through 25 writer-in-residence at Occidental College and lives in Los Angeles. Please give it up for Chekwube Danladi.
Thank you for the introduction. This lighting is so good. When both of the readers were reading, I just couldn't stop looking at y'all. It just looks so good. So I hope it's doing me some favors as well. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Lambda, for inviting me, whoever the Lambda people are. It's always really nice to read alongside other Lambda alum because it's just such a reminder of what a magical place that was to get to connect with other LGBTQ writers in that way. It's just amazing. So, okay, I am going to make sure I don't talk too much, and I'm going to read from my collection, Semiotics, my baby. Yeah, I'll read from a few poems from there. I thought I was going to read from some new stuff, but I looked at the new stuff and I was like, this is terrible. Let me share the stuff that I actually like, you know. It's in progress. Let me not say terrible. Okay. All right, so this first poem I'll read is called Depraved Indifference. And this poem is written after a poem by Evie Shockley, that poem is called The Way We Live Now. And so I read that and felt very inspired and wrote this one. And this poem is dedicated to Freddie Gray. For those who may have forgotten, was murdered by several members of the Baltimore Police Department. So this poem is dedicated to him and his twin sister, Frederica. Since the king of any hood be he who best shuttles our hordes of undead, since torching the blazing bundle, who promised as a final gift to be the first breath of smog for mama's remaining mornings, since eviction be rule of law, bullets the gods for their seizure, for their thermodynamics, for their aching after praise and shout. You and I are the taboo, queer for our clutch and seeing eye to eye. Since the blessing of forgiveness at every hastened leaving, since the landlord's sentinels ride rough to shatter spines, lest the rest of us forget, since with any easy holler, we too will be left twinless, clanless, privileged only the luck of the riot, without any place at all to take our rest. That particular loss always deeply touches me because I have a twin sister. And so to think about having to experience that kind of a loss. R.I.P. So this next poem is called Spontaneous Repulsion. Times look to us a tensile hook and tug, taught best by the natural world's anguished kinks. A bird in a gator's teeth, lush afterglow of an unrepentant earth, having given itself to be scorched. Then us, who better to catalog our failures, having been inside each at the same time, grounded by eating overripe figs, thanking the table its barrier, asking aloud for coffee, a close call to feeling. A monophony of coyotes, this one is brave as hell, strutting in here all overripe, braved coming into hair hell. Come, my sickly smell, pull the corner store still frame at its grubby edges, our flower dress mid-thigh, waist beads showing through loosened buttonholes, the aroused hum of such hungry hours. Or because of our growing into mother's face, of us who's not inclined, and asks some days to name a child, theoretically. Who but she knows tomorrow, the name we'd give, an all right bet, but the body barks back constantly. Dark elbows, barbelled nipples clanking the plexiglass display. Swisher Sweet, a bamboo bitch, skin lightening cream. Nothing cares to hold past one long maybe. Envision mother in ourself, in the whirl, holding back, the days we bit our lip in glee, when Ma's hand hovered over, our childish heads never still. Ma's hand pulling the braids too hard, initiating our parting. Okay. Thank you. I grew up in West Baltimore. Oh, I've lived in many places in my life, but I grew up in Baltimore. And it's, whenever I say that, people only immediately think of The Wire, which is sad. It's not just that. But I always experienced it as a definitely kind of tough place, but with a, I guess, rugged beauty to it. So I like trying to let people know that whatever they're thinking about Baltimore is probably wrong. And to remember also that it's still with me. So this poem I wrote and dedicate to all of the badass girls on the west side of Baltimore. It's called Oriki for West Side Girls. Eater of the heat of the block, the provincial magnificence doer, pass, fearless pacer, pass, past hood hyenas, full stretch, keeper of stone fists, always in bloody mood at the theaters of war. Blood red since way back when back in the day was days she hated. The underrated she sweated off, and arms thrown around the upset. She who shields she from insult, she who keeps blades beneath her tongue, and of them, fingers poised to remind any fool, West Side, West Side, West Side. Howled from splintered throat, who houses the splintered throat? That cry which fixes to time, who incants the rhythm against the drum of her teeth. Warning only once, come for me. She whose teeth de-gut the fallen city, makes new by each dawn, she who was begged for to be birthed. She who darkness gives favor, she who comes near the names of God. She who gives straight spines, boys and Air Force Ones, well-versed in the diviner's trade, forges tools of pigeon feathers, Newport filters, MD 2020, she still with no water to drink. She who beneath the streetlight, back to the burnt-out tire of day, turns up her eyes and dizzies the sun. I got a little time. It always feels like you're going for so long and then it's not that long. Or you're one of those people who doesn't realize that you've gone on forever and ever. So I'm always like, okay, don't be that bitch. Okay, let me see. Okay, yeah, I'll read this one. Also a place poem, kind of. So I grew up in Baltimore. I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and lived there as a little one. And Lagos, for those who don't know, is just a city that has been so taken advantage of by Europe for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's impossible not to see the imprint of that depth of oppression. And so it's this very heavy place, but also so cool and beautiful, and I love it, my hometown. One of my hometowns. This poem is called Black Lagoon for Lagos. I have yet to taste either salt water, whole, nor inland dry, tongue bleeding as horrid as each May's torrent. Slum-battered, stilt villages, sword-jointed, where Portuguese tongues took solace in conquest, one cartography subdued, bubbling beneath another. The Atlantic's edge drawn in, soft as a negrito's moan. Shore swollen with bloat, frothy with the skies erotic. All of the land is ready, eager for the captive tautology. Straighten, lighten, brittle, unbecome, the native tongue's final task to suckle loose once more, tamarind seeds, evidence of this committed curse. My diction now is mangled as my hair. If to be the early dark, keeping watch, offering my meat for men to feed. If the swamp's lumen tempting enough, I've already forgotten my father's name. Sated with the drunk port of Badagry, yet, as I slumbered, the waters deemed me displaceable, war-bound, allowed this abiding haunting. Okay, I'm gonna do, I'll read one more. So this poem is called Ji How She, and Ji How She is a phrase, I guess, in the Hausa language, which is a language spoken in West Africa. It's actually one of the most widely spoken languages on the African continent. And that's my mother's family. It's kind of their language group. So in Hausa, Ji How She translates to, in English translates to be pissed, to be kind of pissed off. So this is Ji How She. 1. I was hammered the first night of Ramadan, guilty as if Allah believed it me, even if not, so many other outlets for discord. Sex, smoke, acupuncture, such practicality in things. I could have showered and had war sung out of me. My other name, Husaina, pressed like a razor to my temple, and I thought to lean into it, knowing for my people the many uses of the cow. Milk, butter, meat. Against the tiles where I arrived, I shouted, slaughter. Are you looking to marry? Why else come home? Menene mutum, if not someone to praise name, the clots my gut sacrificed months earlier. I want that ache again, a hunger to walk the evening with. 2. I was at my mother's ear while she killed anything, the cock's neck in her hand at 1986's Eid. The flesh sacrifice mutual, so many pleasures guaranteed. So nothing beautiful ends here. Her largesse brought prone, and me, an oracle, awaiting questions elsewhere, afflicted to hurt nothing but myself. She too withstood love's accretion by holding her fingers to the flame, yet did make up her face that dusk, wearing her body like a sin only soothed by eating. No, Munshanu Nama. Most of her is since covered, her kneeling pious, a soul belated in exchange for sky and clean firmament. What is a man? One coming soon to hold night against her. Too early. It was that low-blown wind, a worm up her skirt. Yet, alone in the kitchen, she broke the fast anyway. Thank you.
One more time for Chekwube, people. And please give it up for all of our authors, Faye, Charles. Thank you, thank you. I do want to give a lot of love and a lot of light to Jennifer Espinosa, who was supposed to be with us today and couldn't. So sending her a lot of love and support. And thanks for being here, y'all. We've got tacos out back. We've got books in the bookstore. Please support our authors. And yeah, stick around for the rest of the night. Thank you all.
Look it up was bad enough to